All right, guys, we just wrapped on ESL One Cologne, the major that isn't a major, arguably the most prestigious tournament outside of the majors in a CSGO calendar year. Now, a ton of great storylines came out of this one, TL winning the Intel Grand Slam in record time, and the big question mark that surrounds Astralis and the potential of their era ending. We've also got some tantalizing stuff on the side, like Coldzera maybe possibly joining FaZe Clan, and we're gonna break that all down today with none other than Matt Sadokist Trivett. And also our budget for the show went up, so I have AirPods now. All right, so let's bring them on. Matt, what is up?
Hey man, how's it going?
So you have now got to call the only two IEM Grand Slam wins, which is kind of amazing. But I actually want to ask you, before we even get into that, about Astralis. Because I think the Team Liquid sort of era, dynasty, whatever you want to call it, can reasonably be said to have begun. But what about the Astralis era? Is it really over, or is it just maybe on pause?
First things first about the 2 Grand Slams. I didn't expect this to happen again this quickly, so that's incredible for Liquid. So I don't even know what I was going to say, because I said like the best of all time last time, and then I was like, well shit, now what do I say? Because like they're gonna do 4 from 4. I kind of like tripped over my words a bit, but I was trying to be like this is incredible. In terms of Astralis, look, I think like a lot of the controversy with I was certainly involved with calling out Blast on things. I think just the community's perception of them changing, unfortunately, because it's nothing against the team themselves. I love those 5 players. I do think Zonic's a great guy. I think that that's had some backlash, and I also think that they were so good for so long. You always are going to run into a point whether they they weren't attending other events, or they lost motivation to practice, or whatever it was, that you're going to have an off time, an off period. Maybe it's one event, maybe it's a while. Right now, I think Astralis look off genuinely. It's not like this is them not practicing, but I think they can bounce back, and I think Zonic said that, in the semifinal against Vitality in the pre-interview. It said, if Liquid better win here or in Chicago, because otherwise we'll be back. There's time enough for them to prepare. There's another major coming. I mean, if they win another major and win 3 in a row and become the 4th major, the first team to win 4 major titles, then I don't think we can dispute that they're still considered to be the number 1. Whether it's Liquid or them, we'd have to see them play off one-on-one. Is the era over? Maybe. If they don't win that major, yes. I'm going to say yes.
That's kind of my perspective as well. Like, everyone is sounding the death knell for Astralis. But I'm thinking if they win the next major, as you say, 3 in a row, 4 total, it would be 3 in a row in a system in which we have 2 majors per year. So just forget about Fnatic at that point. It's like, doesn't that kind of make everything that happened between Katowice and then okay?
I mean, you'd have to ask them that. It depends on your perspective of the tournament scene, and certainly they haven't been putting a lot of priority into some of the other main events, so maybe that was their goal. Obviously, they've missed on a few now, and I think Cologne was certainly one that they were hoping to win and get on terms again with the Grand Slam, because keep in mind, for them to win a second Intel Grand Slam, if that was their objective, or if it was something that they were hoping to achieve, they were giving away events. They won Katowice, which started off their season. That was the start of season 2, technically. They then missed 3. So to win Cologne would have put them as 2 wins from 5 events, and they would have only had 5 more to close it out. So I think it depends on how you look at the team's objective. For me personally, I would be willing to say that it was an important part of the story, but it's not like you can just say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, because it still does. It still is why we compete. It still is why they're there as teams. It still has to be part of the objective. Otherwise, we just throw the rest out and only play majors.
Exactly, and then we're just Dota at that point.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point about the length in which TL got this Grand Slam. Obviously, they did as best as you can mathematically do, 4 out of 4, and that's great. Is it reasonable or unreasonable to say maybe we should take those 4 wins with a grain of salt? Only because, as you brought up, Astralis were sort of deigning not to attend certain events. Dallas was in there and Navi wasn't there either. Some of the competition could be said to not have been as stiff as, say, Season 1.
I don't know that I agree with that statement. I know what you're getting at, and it's the Astralis versus Liquid directly. To say that the competition wasn't as fierce, I don't think that's true. I think the meta has shifted twice within the time that the Season 2 was announced. We obviously had a AUG-heavy presence. That's now been neutered and nerfed. We had the SG come into its own. That's probably, I'm going to say, be nerfed as well soon. I can't speak to that, like, knowing factually, but I would suspect that it will be. And we've had a number of changes, including Vertigo, come into the map pool. So in some ways, you've had Ents rise to the occasion. You've had Vitality show up in incredible form lately. Everyone seems to be getting more consistent again. MIBR fallen off. Navi's made changes. I think Liquid, in terms of the overall pool, have gone through more to achieve what they did in terms of meta changes, in terms of other teams coming up. The one thing they didn't get, and this is where people will talk, is, well, they didn't have to play Astralis a lot. But keep in mind, they did last year in finals, and they gave them good games. They didn't beat them, they gave them good games. Now, I know iBuyPower at the start of this year was a shape-up event, and a lot of people didn't take that seriously, but they also did beat them there. And I think at the Major, they were so focused on beating Astralis, they took their eyes off the prize, and that's the key ingredient, because if we'd had the Katowice Liquid Astralis final, we wouldn't even be discussing this right now, because it would have answered the question, it would have painted the picture. If Liquid beat them there, no question, Liquid rises above them, and that's that. If they don't beat them there, maybe there's still a debate. And I get it, because Astralis aren't attending, so we can't answer the question one-on-one, which is why I would love to see that be the next Major final. I would love to have that final showdown. Even if it's in the playoffs at some point, it still counts, but a final would make it more epic. You'd have to really look at someone like Sean or Chad or even Yanko. Obviously, he's not going to do that in the coaching role, but to break down the demos and analyze it to tell you who could beat who on any given day right now. On current form, Liquid bests them, but are we seeing the best of Astralis? I don't know. So it is kind of unfair to Liquid to say, well, right now I'm going to say it, they are #1 in the world, but to say, well, we don't know if they're having an era. And I think the next Major, if they win that, no question. And I think at that point, the discussion for best of all time comes into the quick picture again, because they've just done what Astralis did. And if they finish out the year in the same way that they're on right now, they do better than what Astralis achieved last year.
I mean, that's pretty reasonable. And, you know, you can't take it away from Liquid that Astralis chose not to attend events. That's certainly not their fault. I wouldn't begrudge them that. I guess, like, from a storyline perspective, for me, just as, you know, as a fan, as someone really invested, as a content creator as well, you know, I love that with Season 1, Astralis had a villain to their superhero, right? A Joker to their Batman in Liquid. And just that storyline for Liquid didn't really develop. There was no great foil. But you mentioned, I want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned ZywOo and Vitality, and obviously they were super exciting to watch at Cologne, and it's awesome to see that young man come into his own. And I might be jumping the gun a little bit here, but, like, are we worried about getting into a simple-esque situation where this, you know, you could say a generational talent could be limited by the pool that his region represents, the French-speaking CS region?
Yeah, absolutely. Simple needs to win a Major. That needs to happen. And let's just say, by the way, if we guys talking about eras, that could just put the damper on both of it. Well, forget all of it. We're just back to competitive picture overall. I think we do have that fear a little bit with ZywOo. The difference, I mean, look, the fact that they went to the finals and they played in the finals and he was the only positive rated player on the team is ridiculous. That in itself is utterly insane. He single-handedly carried that team. Now, I say carried, it's not like there wasn't other people stepping up at times. Alex showed good form on CT side, obviously him bringing the in-game leading. Apex certainly had some solid multi-kill rounds that had massive impact for them. I think that some of their mistakes are easy to fix. Well, easy to identify, maybe harder to fix, but the anti-eco situation is certainly a large part of the reason they didn't at least win map 1 in the finals, why they struggled in the group stage. It's something that they hopefully can address. And I think that they'll come within their own as a team. I think the ingredients are there for them. I think RPK looked absolutely sick on Dust 2. That was the best I've ever seen him play in CSGO. That was old school source material from him. And if they can get that out of everyone, then they're there. And I don't know who you would even change to make that team better right now. That's the difference. Whereas in Navi, we looked at constant players that were underperforming, and we had a larger time frame to say, okay, that's an underperformance. That's not them developing or still needing to develop. That's them just missing off or falling off completely.
Yeah, God, like, I'm starting to get desperate for Simple's sake. You know, the Boomich move is like a good one, just flat out. You know, I think even casual viewers can tell that. But with how incredible Liquid is looking, and a possible Astralis return to strength looming, and with guys like ZywOo coming up, I kind of look at that team and I just wonder if Simple is ever gonna get there. Boomich is great, that's fine, but it still feels like it felt last year and the year before that. And I fall into this trap, and I know actually the guys on the desk at Cologne discussed this a little bit about mixed language rosters, or rosters that communicate in languages that are not their first language. But I fall into this maybe fan trap of saying like, my God, I would love to see Simple put with X, Y, and Z, or go to this team or go to that team that is outside the CIS region.
Yeah, well, let's not forget he was on Liquid at one point. The last Cologne finals that Liquid was in, he was there. I mean, he's played outside of the region before, and had mixed results, I think. Decent success. Lost in a semifinal in Columbus to LG in very dramatic fashion. Then went on to Cologne at the next major to play in the finals and still fall shy. So yeah, I mean, he's tried it before. It is true. I think that the problem is that the CIS region is the same place that every region was in, and now Brazil's finding themselves in. Younger talent is coming through, and the meta is shifting, and some of the older guard aren't either adapting or maybe are just simply not as talented as some of these young guys. So they're starting to make the changes. They've brought in Electronic, who's really good. Boomich coming in. It's you've got to mix youth with experience right now, I think, to be a top team. And I think Simple has to stay there. But yeah, if he doesn't win this, I think for me, for storylines, whether Liquid, Astralis, or Navi win would be perfect for all three of the reasons we've talked about for each respective team, and I think that they have to win one in the next year with Simple.
I think you're right. I gotta say, this is a tangent, but I love Electronic to death. I think he's incredible. I've been singing his praises since Flipside Tactics. I think he was awesome in Cologne. So if it's it's those two, when I look at Navi, like I just have this imaginary line that's divided. It's those two and then everybody else. You brought up Brazil, and that's a really interesting regional test case to see what's happening there with Furia and the former SK Gaming, now MIBR. Obviously right now the hot topic in that region is Coldzera looking to step back from the team. The big rumor is obviously maybe FaZe Clan. Keo tweeted a picture of him and Nico phasing up in some kind of casino.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for FaZe Clan. I don't think that's really much of a secret at this point. And I kind of love the storyline/meme that it does become a retirement home for once great CSGO players. So I kind of want Cold to be there. But I also at the same time don't know if that's the solution for a super team on paper that has been anything but for the last 2 years.
Yeah, really since the Cloud9 loss in the finals at the major, and then Katowice followed that up, same thing. I don't know. It's a weird one for me. I don't want to get too vocal on some of the opinions I have about that team, because I don't think that they're based on skill. I think they're based on attitude, and I don't know if it's true, but just speculation. I think that there might be some they get along really well outside the game, but I think there might be some issues in game that might be holding them back. I know in-game leadership's certainly been an obvious one, and they've made changes to bring in Neo, but getting rid of Neo again already and bringing in Cold or going back to Nico in-game leading, I personally don't think Nico in-game leading was the answer, and I don't think it was a good thing for them in the long run. So yeah, it's a tough one for me, and interestingly, to go on the other side of it, what does it mean for MIBR? Cold had hinted in the past that he actually was potentially wanting to go to Liquid and join Taco, which actually would have meant that Twist was going to be the one that they wanted to poach to go to MIBR, and it never really materialized. It never really got anywhere. It was them talking more than the orgs, and it's interesting to think that they would lose what is the centerpiece of that team in a lot of ways. I know Fallen is the spiritual leader, but Cold has been the skill pushing that force. And I don't know what happens to either party if it works, because like you say, FaZe has so much skill but still aren't making it work. So does he suddenly fix them? Does he motivate them? I don't know. And I also don't know if he's even going to FaZe. Certainly that seems to be the rumor that has the most weight behind it, but we'll see. I mean, both those teams need help. I don't know what fixes it. That's not my job, I guess. I just sit back and see what happens.
Matt, thank you so much for making time. I'm going to let you go now, and maybe you can get a few hours of relaxation in after your busy schedule. But yeah, thank you so much for making time. It's been an awesome chat.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to talking to you guys again soon.
All right, Matt, so I'm just going to pretend that we just got you on the line. I just called you on the phone. Do that whole shtick.
Hey, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Do it in that voice, too.
I will.
Matt, what is up?
Hey, man. How's it going?
You did do the voice.
I did.